Hey guys, Constance here from Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So today I thought I would bring you into the kitchen and cook supper with me tonight. Mr. Smith and I did a bunch of work out in the goat yard today. Got a whole bunch of stuff done today. But now the storm system is rolling in, and so I came in and got all cleaned up, and it is time to make our meal. So I am going to do an easy recipe in my Instant Pot today. I've talked about it in the past. I don't use my Instant Pot very often, but I do have a handful of recipes that I do really like making in it, and this is one of those. It is a beef and broccoli soup. It is just full of flavor and it is so good. We really enjoy it. So I'm going to get this started. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to brown some stew meat, some beef. And to do that, I need a little bit of oil in my Instant Pot here. I'm just using a couple tablespoons of avocado oil. You can use coconut oil or olive oil, whatever you prefer to use. And so I'm going to go ahead and press the saute button and let that start heating up. Alright, and while that heats up, I'm going to start dicing up my onion. We'll let that heat up for just a minute. Give this a little swirl. The bottom of an Instant Pot has kind of a little bit of a convex surface, and so oil tends to move away from the middle. So I always give it a little swirl before I put the meat in. Now I'm not going to do this all at once. I'm just going to do this in portions so that this meat can brown. So I'll do about half at a time. Okay, and then I'll dice the other half of my onion. Let's bring you down here so you can see a little bit. There we go. What, honey?
You're crazy.
Who is? Oh. All right. The other half of the beef is just about ready. And I realized just a moment ago that I forgot to salt and pepper the meat before I browned it, but it's not the end of the world. I'll just add it when I do the soup part. And I think it's getting a little dark in here, so let me turn the light on. Alright, and scoop out the other half of the meat. Try not to lean too close because this is hot and it has a tendency for that oil to pop. Alright, so now I'm going to add in my onions, and I'm just going to let these cook for just a minute. basically I'm just letting them soften a hair. And I'm not done with my cutting board and knife yet because I'm going to need it for the broccoli. So I will just set it aside for a moment. Okay, let me get my measuring cup. So the last video where I cooked dinner, I had the camera too close to the skillet that was browning up meat, and all you could hear was the shh of the meat. So I'm trying to be mindful and have the camera back a little bit further today so that we don't have that with the Instant Pot. Alright, that'll do it. Cancel. Now we're going to add in pretty much everything else except the broccoli. So we add the beef back in. Oop, and my tea is done. Alright, so I'm going to add in the salt and pepper that I forgot to add. About a quarter of a teaspoon or so of each. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to add in is coconut aminos. Coconut aminos is kind of like sort of like soy sauce, but it's not soy. It's obviously made of coconut. So 2 tablespoons of that. Then we have 1 tablespoon of fish sauce. And fish sauce, I don't really know what to compare that to. It just adds a richness to the soup. Okay, now ginger. So now I'm going to need 1.5 teaspoons of grated fresh ginger, but this is one of my shortcuts that I like to do. It is just pureed ginger. It comes in a tube in your produce department, and it is just very time-saving. It's organic and all that good stuff too. And here's another one, garlic. This is another one of my shortcuts. So this recipe calls for 3 cloves of minced garlic, and you can mince the garlic or 3 teaspoons or a tablespoon of garlic paste. Again, this is just ground up garlic. It is a time saver, just like the Instant Pot is. Now 1 tablespoon of honey. And I gotta tell you, this handy dandy little pouring jar, syrup jar, honey jar, whatever you want to call this thing. I am so glad I found this. Got this at Tractor Supply a couple weeks ago. So handy. Alrighty. And then the final thing is some beef broth. And this will take 3 cups. So I just got done canning 26 pints of chicken stock the other day. I think the next thing I need to work on is some homemade beef. Okay, so that is pretty much it up to this point. So I'm just going to stir this all together and then double check my recipe, make sure I didn't miss anything. That has happened. Nope, we are good to go. Alright, so I'm going to close up the Instant Pot. make sure the valve is closed. I'm going to press the manual button and I'm going to set this to 25 minutes. And that is it. And while this is doing its thing, I'm going to clean up, put everything away, and I will start dicing up and preparing the broccoli. Alright, so basically I've got 2 heads of broccoli here, and I'm going to cut off all of the florets, because the florets is what I'm going to want for this soup. And the stems, you know, we're not a huge fan of broccoli stems, and you know, some people are, and that's great, but you could feed them to the rabbits if you've got some rabbits. I don't know if goats can have it. I'll have to check before I give that to them. But you can keep a container or a big freezer bag in your freezer and save things like your broccoli stems, your trimmings, your scraps, your onion skins, all of that, and use it for making vegetable broth. So that is just a way of putting things to use that you may not ordinarily. So I'm just going to take some of the really big pieces like this, and I'm just going to break them in half just to make them more bite-sized. And then that is pretty much going to be it until the Instant Pot is finished doing its cycle. So I'm going to leave this here and go sit down and enjoy my mug of tea while I'm waiting. Alrighty, the Instant Pot just finished doing its cycle, but it is still under pressure. The lid is not going to open yet. So I'm just going to let the pressure come down naturally. That'll take, I don't know, about 10 minutes or so. You could vent the top as well and let that pressure off if you wanted to, but I'm not too worried about it. I can wait a few more minutes. Alrighty, so my pressure released, and with Instant Pots, when they get done doing the pressure cycle, they're still maintaining heat. They're still keeping the food nice and hot in there, and broccoli cooks really, really fast. So I don't worry about turning on the saute button or anything like that with the broccoli. I'm just going to take these raw florets and I'm just going to drop them into the soup. And that heat that's in there, that hot broth, that is more than enough to cook this broccoli. And it will be ready in just a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to kind of stir that in there. Let me give you a little peek here. And just let the heat from the soup do its thing. Alright you guys, so my broccoli and beef soup is done. The broccoli is just cooked, perfect. Alright, so that is it. Dinner is done, and as you saw, this was really easy to make. A very simple Instant Pot recipe, and you can actually modify this. You could thicken up the broth of the soup, turn it into more of a sauce, and serve this over some cooked rice if you like. You could add some sliced water chestnuts or some sliced up scallions on top. So there's a number of ways you could modify this to suit your tastes or make it into something completely different other than a soup. Now this recipe is low carb, it is paleo friendly, and if you omit the honey, it is also keto friendly if you follow any of the low carb diets. So that is it for today. If you are new here and you just found this channel for the first time, my name is Constance. I am a food writer over at cosmopolitancornbread.com, where you can find hundreds of recipes and articles. And here on the YouTube channel, I do at least 3 videos every week on homesteading, home cooking, and back to basics. And be sure to sign up for my free newsletter. You can get Cosmopolitan Cornbread in your inbox. So thanks for joining me here in the Homestead kitchen. And I'm gonna go grab Mr. Smith and we're gonna eat our supper. I will talk to y'all next time.